Good evening. So I decided to read another book by Kingfisher and ended up with this one. It's called Paladin's Grace, and it's essentially a fantasy romance. So this story is set in, I guess, what would be considered a city-state called Archon's Glory. And something that's more unusual about this particular world is that there are a lot of paladins. So it's not really like a new concept, but I think I've never really seen it so common, like or so prevalent in a world before. Like there are a lot of different gods in this universe, and they each have like their own paladins who have their own unique abilities that people call upon depending on what they need. So for instance, you have the dreaming god, who's known for like his paladins being really good at dealing with demons. So if you have a demon problem, then these are the people you call. So one of the main characters, Stephen, is, or I guess was the paladin of a god called the Saint of Steel, but unfortunately, like a couple years ago, his god actually died. Like no one knows how or why it happened, but when it happened, all of his people like essentially went insane for a period of time. And also, extremely unfortunately, the Saint of Steel's paladins were berserkers, so they caused a great deal of damage, like in the course of their insanity. So now, like, there are literally only 7 of his paladins left, and they were taken in by a different god. So they now all work at the Temple of the White Rat. So the White Rat doesn't really have paladins, like most of his people are like healers and lawyers, and like they describe it as like people who fix the problems that people have in their everyday lives. So Stephen and his brothers and sisters now do a lot of guard work, like they stand around and look intimidating, like for people who need that protection, or they guard healers as they go about their work and stuff. And for a lot of them, it's really more about getting by, like they're trying to figure out how to continue living, like us in the absence of their god. And for Stephen, it feels a lot like he's really just hanging on in order to pay back the debt he feels like he owes to the White Rat for looking after like him and his brethren, like for giving them a place, I guess. So he's really just trying to be responsible, but he's not really trying to, I guess, what we would consider live a full life. Like he doesn't really believe he's capable of having like a normal relationship with anyone anymore. So he definitely has not been looking for anyone. And then he meets Grace. So the second main character in this story is called Grace, and she is a perfume maker. Like they actually meet when she was running away from the servants of this other god who's very much the burn people at the stake variety, and he helps her get away from them. So her background, like she had like a really bad previous marriage, and like is now like she essentially, I guess, ran away from her husband and has been trying to make a new life for herself in this city. And she's done pretty well. Like, she's a very good perfumist. And, but at the same time, she's also been really hesitant about trying to find someone else or trying to form other relationships. Like, she just has her friend and landlady, who is actually a spy for another city-state. Let's see. So there's technically a lot of stuff going on in the city at this time. Like, for instance, Stephen was in the district where he met her because he was guarding a healer through an area where there's recently been a series of murders where people have been beheaded and like their heads thrown in the river and stuff like that. And there's also some political intrigues going on where you have ambassadors and like just representatives from other city-states here to negotiate things with the Archon. And then there was like a possible attempted assassination attempt Oops, well, yeah, attempted. So, but anyway, it's like some possible murders that people aren't really sure about. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the city at this time, and the story follows the relationship between Grace and Stephen as they navigate what's happening in the city and keep running into each other at the same time. And they're both kind of struggling with each of their own reservations at the idea of even forming a close relationship with someone new. So something I liked about this story, like I think I've felt this way often about this author's stuff, where I think there's a kind of humor in the writing style that I just really enjoy. Like when I first read the summary of this book, like it talked about the whole, witnessing a murder and having to protect the perfume maker that he met, and I just thought it sounded like it might actually be really dark. But when I started reading it, I found that I think the writing style makes it so the subject matter, even when it could have been dark, isn't really. So what I mean by things in the language would be like, for instance, it described the Saint of Steel's paladins, at least before their god died, as like precision berserkers, like people you just point them in the right direction and they'd, kill all the bad guys without like harming anyone who was innocent, because the god sort of took care of making sure that that didn't happen. And then there was this part was describing Stephen when he was going through an area and he's thinking, oh, it's a pretty safe area, and then he amends himself by saying that, okay, well, it's technically a safe area if you're a man and you're really tall and you have really broad shoulders. So yeah, like safe in quotation marks. There's a lot of basically like kind of subtle humor in the way it's written, the way it describes things, that just makes the story fun to read for me. But something I did not like was, honestly, I think the murder mystery line was really anticlimactic. Like I really wanted to know what was going on, and I really wanted to know like the mystery behind it, because there's definitely something that seems almost supernatural about it, but the whole thing just sort of concludes. Like, I guess you could say there wasn't that exploration of things like reasons and hows and whys and stuff that you would get in a full-blown murder mystery. Like it really was kind of in a background thing that helped move the romance line along, and I was kind of disappointed by how you did not get a lot of that story.